Hey guys, did you miss me? Oh, I know I kind of disappeared there for a while. There's been so much going on in the last few weeks. I have been busy with work and also spent a good amount of time in Miami. I went to the Miami Open with some friends and it's always so fun. I like to go every year and just be a tennis fan. One of my good friends is a ball person every year and he loves it so much. I love to see how happy that makes him and just be around friends and watching the best players in the world. It's such a treat. And this year, the weather was great. It actually wasn't as hot as usual, at least when I was there. But, I also can't help myself. And I'm always thinking, oh, they should be doing this. They should be doing that at the tournament. This could be better. Why don't they do that? I really just can't help myself. I also went to the Directors Club retreat in Boca Raton. That was truly incredible. Just to see what Jared, Chris, and Michael have put together for the industry is nothing short of spectacular. The event was held at Boca West Country Club, and I learned so much just from being there and seeing how they do things. They really gave us all the royal treatment. I just feel like I have so much to learn and constantly feel that the more I know, the less I know. I always felt like that back in my science/research days, but I'm starting to realize it is the same when it comes to hospitality and the tennis industry. I got to spend time with just amazing people in our industry and got to meet some new ones as well. It's really fun to connect with fellow directors because we all just have so much in common. We go through the same stuff and we're all like really fun people in general. I think this industry tends to attract good personalities, fun people, It's definitely not as serious as it may seem on LinkedIn, at least for me though, but that could be because I also gravitate towards people who I think are fun and have a good sense of humor. I do not like small talk, so I don't get to talk to as many people as I probably should. I actually find it exhausting to have the same conversation 100 times. I'd rather just meet a few people and actually go deeper in conversation or at least get to know them a little bit. And also it's weird because I'm not generally shy, but whenever there's more than, say, 6 people around, I kind of become really, really shy. I go in my little shell like a turtle. Something I couldn't help but notice while at the Directors Club retreat was that women in tennis still have a long way to go. We are ahead of many sports, but there is so much room for growth. There was a decent amount of women present at the retreat, yay, but I have to say that I was very surprised to see that not one woman was a part of the discussions or presentations on stage. None. And this is not a critique to the DCA because, like I said, it was an incredible experience, but it is a fact. This tells me women have a long way to go as leaders in this industry. Once I think we don't need the conversations about women in leadership or women in coaching anymore, I experienced something like this and realized we do have to keep the conversation going because we're just not there yet. So today, you'll get to hear my conversation with Tara. I originally know her from LinkedIn of all places, but I also met her in person in Austin at the Game Changers event and learned about her initiative with Girls Rule the Court. Let me tell you, she is such a boss. I want to be her when I grow up. We got into some great conversations regarding women in leadership, empowering women, and I did ask her some tough questions regarding all the DEI stuff that's going on in our current political climate. I may be biased, but I think this was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed talking with Tara. Thank you for being patient with me as I don't actually have a regular episode schedule. Sometimes I have one every week, sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes I disappear, sometimes once a month. So because of that, I want you to go ahead and subscribe to the Vita Tennis channel on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening from. That way you get notified when a new episode comes out. Okay, get ready to hear from one of the best out there, only here at Vita Tennis. Enjoy. Podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. I'm your host, Jennifer Gelhaus, and today we welcome Tara Fitzpatrick Navarro. She is a visionary nonprofit leader and CEO at USTA Mid-Atlantic, where she has driven innovation, inclusion, and accessibility in tennis since 2014. Under her leadership, the organization has launched transformative programs like Girls Rule the Court, empowering girls from underrepresented communities through tennis. Prior to USTA Mid-Atlantic, she held senior roles at the National Recreation and Park Association, leading workforce strategies and professional development initiatives. Welcome, Tara, to Vida Tennis. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about all the cool things I get to do in tennis.
Me too. Thank you so much for being here. You come from the Parks and Rec world. How did you end up in tennis?
I'm very fortunate to have a strong background in sort of recreation and sports very holistically. I have worked with people with disabilities. I've run senior centers. I was a certified therapeutic recreation specialist at one point, a certified park and recreation professional. So I did all of the things. I married somebody who loved tennis. And when we started dating, he took me out to play tennis, and I was terrible and he was great. So that was fun for a while, but eventually you don't like losing to your husband and things. So I transitioned to being an awesome tennis parent for my children, who have both played on and off for the last more than a decade. And now I'm fortunate enough to get to work in a sport that I think is really, really special in how it changes lives. I believe truly that tennis is not like other sports. There's very few sports where you call your own lines and you build the kind of character and grit and determination that tennis requires. And I just think it is so amazing for life.
I can definitely attest to that. It has affected every part of my life since I started playing tennis, in a positive way, at least.
Absolutely.
Do you play today?
I do not play today because my knees don't like it.
So have you transitioned to pickleball or anything?
I do play a little pickleball, yes. And, for me, participating in any kind of sport or activity is all about the community that I build. And so I just want to make sure that I'm staying active and healthy and socializing. And I think racket sports in general are great for that. Of course, I would love to be playing tennis, but when you've dislocated your knee a couple of times, it starts to hurt when you get older.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you have daughters or sons?
I do. I have a son and a daughter. So I get to be the parent of both, which is very eye-opening.
Did your girl pick up tennis more than the boy?
Actually, my son played a lot more tennis. He's playing a lot more pickleball now, but he played way more tennis, did the tournament thing, junior team tennis, the whole circuit. My daughter was a tennis player. She had a beautiful swing, and I really wanted her to stick with it. And she fell in love with softball and decided that the tennis swing was messing up her batting swing. And so I can get her to play occasionally, but she's pretty busy with softball these days.
She will have tennis forever. After softball is done, even if she goes to play college, at some point softball ends, she'll continue to have tennis.
So. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So that's a great thing. I don't blame her. I went the other day to watch USF. They have softball and baseball right next to each other. And I was actually having more fun watching the softball. I thought it looked so fun. I wish I was a part of it, because I would be those girls that are yelling the whole 3 hours of the game.
Yes.
Getting everyone pumped up, probably the most annoying person to some people, but that would have been me.
She loves the grittiness of softball. She plays first base and catcher. She likes to be behind the plate and call the game, and she loves getting dirty. So
that's great. All right, so tell us about your role at USTA Mid-Atlantic, and then you can tell us too about the Girls Rule the Court program and what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So I have been with USTA Mid-Atlantic Foundation since 2014. I am the CEO and executive director, and that means I get to oversee all of tennis from tiny tots to seniors in the Mid-Atlantic region, which is Maryland, Virginia, DC, and the majority of West Virginia. So we sanction tournaments, we run adult leagues, we teach PE teachers, we help facility providers to roll out new programs, really the whole gamut. We are the hub of the tennis ecosystem within USTA Mid-Atlantic. And then we are super proud of our kind of signature program, I will call it, Girls Rule the Court. Call it an equity initiative disguised as sports. We're not just teaching girls how to play tennis, though we are. We also are showing them how to lead, and we're creating access, which is so awesome because not everybody does have access yet to the amazing life-changing sport of tennis. So we're working on removing barriers, building confidence, giving them that community that I talked about. I want girls to know they belong in sport. So we want to give them their identity and their power and know that every time they pick up a racket, they're picking up a sense of possibility. So it's an awesome, awesome program that we run in schools and parks and rec and in neighborhoods. And it has changed over 1,000 girls' lives in the last 2 years since we started piloting it. And now we're working on taking it nationwide.
That's awesome. I love that. Why is it important to have a program that empowers girls in sports?
So most people don't realize how few opportunities girls actually have in sports. So for boys in high school, for every 3 opportunities that boys get to play sports, girls get 1. Girls drop out of sports at a much higher rate than boys. Yet the research shows that girls who play sports are more likely to go on to graduate from college and hold leadership positions in life. Studies of CEOs show that 75% of more of those CEOs played a sport and played a sport in high school and stuck with it. So we know how much sport changes lives, and I want young girls to have their lives changed through sport in the same way that boys have it. And so we're wanting to create a movement where more girls are playing sports, and particularly more girls are playing tennis, because tennis is an amazing equal playing field for young women, both in sport as a girl, but also in life. Equal prize money at the Grand Slams. Come on.
And it's a lifetime sport. So it's something that women can have literally until the day they die.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, what do you say to the people that maybe think that there's just a lack of interest? I mean, that's such a common misconception, I think, that women just have a lack of interest in sports.
Well, I think the most recent data shows that women do not have a lack of interest in sports. Women's sports professionally and at the collegiate level are crushing it from a business perspective. So, this idea that sports is by and for men is absolutely, completely wrong. There is no investment, no visibility, and no access. I shouldn't say no, but the lack of investment and visibility and access is huge. I mean, they don't get the same airtime, they don't get the same storytelling, they don't get the same promotion, but we're seeing that when we promote women's sports, give equal platform, just like in every industry, then the systems change so that there really truly is opportunity. I think it's not a lack of interest. I think it's a lack of imagination and willingness to see beyond gender norms that are completely outdated and incorrect.
100%. And why do you think boys, how do I say this? I get this question and I understand the question. I understand why people would think this, but why is it okay to quote unquote exclude boys from a program. The point of the program is to empower girls. But what would be your message to someone that says, but by doing something that's called, let's say, girls rule the court, you are excluding a population and you're not creating opportunities for them. What is your message to that kind of mentality?
Everything about Girls Rule the Court is rooted in equity. It's not about exclusion. It is about creating that level playing field. We're not excluding boys. We're addressing this long-standing imbalance. Girls Rule the Court exists because the playing field has never been equal. Boys have more access, they have more encouragement, they have more representation. Girl-focused programming is about giving girls the same shot, not taking away from boys. And all of the research shows that girls perform better, they take more risks, they stay in sports longer when and if they have girl-centered spaces, particularly in the early stages of development, like our program, which is for 7 to 13-year-olds. Research shows that girls are more likely to drop out of sports during adolescence, and that's because of social pressure, lack of confidence, or environments where they feel overlooked. And that happens a lot in co-ed sports.
Oh, yes.
You often will see more boys than girls. And our program is a response to that. It's not a rejection of boys. When spaces are created for boys, they're called sports. When they're for girls, they're labeled as special programs. And that matters. We are adding to what has been missing. Boys don't need to be the default. They've always had that head start.
Yeah. I like that stat that you mentioned that a lot of current women CEOs are athletes. I actually didn't know that. It doesn't surprise me by any means, but I'd love to hear that. And I saw you posted about the Netflix show, The Running Point.
Oh, it's a great show.
Are you still watching it?
I am. I'm still in it because I don't have a lot of time for television. But it's a good, enjoyable comedy, but also a really poignant description of what it's like to be a female, sort of paving the way for the first time in a very male-dominated industry.
Yeah, I've been watching it. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm watching it too, and I love it. First of all, it's hilarious, and I can relate to so many things. And one of the things that you mentioned in your post was about the pressure that women have in these leadership roles to be perfect. And I think that that's a common theme, right? In women, not just in any position, but especially in like a male dominated world, is that pressure to be perfect. I think the guys get away with so much more and being inappropriate. Women are expected to never fail, to do everything perfectly, to always say the right thing. Can you speak a little bit about that? What resonated with you from the show?
Yeah, I think I wrote a little bit about that scene specifically where Isla gets appointed as the president and then her best friend Allie basically says, don't F it up. Because if a woman fails, it is a sign for all women. And unfortunately, the research shows that women in leadership are often held to a higher standard. And women at the CEO level tend to have a shorter tenure than men at the same level. And we need systems that support women and women's success, but we also need to remember that there continues to be implicit bias about women in leadership roles and their effectiveness, and hold women to the same standards as men, because otherwise we're not going to be able to continue to climb this mountain and break this barrier.
Yeah. How do we do that with young girls? How can we stop that search for perfection in women? And, especially to always say the right thing. I feel so filtered at times, that I can't say that, or I got to say it this way. And I've gotten better at it as I get older, but there's definitely that pressure that the guys just don't have. How do we cultivate that confidence and that sense of being okay, being yourself in young women?
Well, I like to say confidence before competence. there's a lot of research that shows that men will see a job description and see one or two things in the qualifications that they maybe have done and go, okay, yeah, I could do that job. And women see a list of things and think if they can't check off every single box, they shouldn't even apply.
Yeah.
So nobody knows how to do something before the first time you do it. And we have to allow ourselves some space and some grace to try and fail, because failure is the way in which we learn. So, building girls' confidence, telling them that they don't need to be over prepared, they just need to try, is part of the battle. But you can't be what you can't see. So young girls need to see women leaders in front of them, and they need to see them early and often. They need to see women in sports. They need to see women in STEM. They need to see women CEOs. They need to see women business founders, women coaches. They need to have an opportunity to picture a future for themselves that they often don't get to see.
Yes. And I will add to what you just said that also boys need to see that.
Absolutely.
The more they see that, then the less likely they're going to just, dismiss women, or they're just going to have so much more respect for women's ideas, thoughts, expertise, and women in leadership positions. We've all seen, certain men that have no respect for women and always question, how did you get there? How do you get that position? And try to take away from the fact that they've worked hard, that they're talented, and that they're just like anybody else has gotten to any type of leadership position. So I think it's really important that boys too see that. Who's a woman in your life that's made an impact in you, that has empowered you and driven you to succeed?
So many, but I have to give credit to one of the most challenging bosses I ever worked for, who also pushed me so hard out of my own comfort zone. I would not be in this role if she hadn't told me to go for it. So my CEO at the National Recreation and Park Association was a woman. She was the first woman to ever lead the organization, and she really mentored me. And one of the things she said to me once was, you have this really strong, tough exterior, and then you're all mushy on the inside. You've got to let a little bit of your outside show up, come inside, and a little bit of your inside show up on the outside, because I felt like I always had to put on a brave face, even when I was hurting. And I was maybe overly sensitive, but never wanted to show it. And so she taught me so much about authenticity in the workplace, which as a woman is hard. We don't necessarily want to talk about how we need flexibility, or we've got a sick kid, or we've got an aging parent who needs help. We don't want to ask for help because we don't want to be seen as incompetent. And I think she really mentored me to find a way for me to figure out my own leadership style and leading with grace and empathy, while also being willing to be a little vulnerable. And I think vulnerability is a huge part of leadership.
Absolutely. Isn't it so funny? We hear a man talk about family and making family time and prioritizing those things, and everybody in the room goes, oh, what a sweet man. He's definitely got his priorities right. But we hear a woman say that and we get annoyed. Like, what's up with that?
Well, have you ever heard the term working dad?
What does that mean?
Nobody says working dad.
Oh, right. Yes.
They don't say it.
Yeah.
But we always say working mom.
Oh my
as
God.
If it is a mantle hung around our neck of negativity, that we're both a mom who's working and therefore we're not really good at either. I try and own that like a badge of honor. I am a mom who is awesome at being a mom, and awesome at work. And guess what? Sometimes that means I make hard choices. That means sometimes I make a choice to prioritize being a mom over being a working person, or vice versa. It means sometimes I miss my kids' activities. It also means sometimes I set up a boundary at work that this thing's important and I'm going to do it. I feel so fortunate that I work for an organization that has the systems and policies in place for that to occur. I also know that I did a lot of work myself to be able to create that. I benefit from being the CEO of our company. But I work for a board of directors who's been nothing but supportive in that way. And I know not all working moms get to do that.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on the coaching world? Obviously, there's a huge lack of female coaches. There just is. Do you have any thoughts on how we can bring in more women coaches in the tennis world?
Well, I don't think that we do have the systems that support women coaches. I think right now they're stifling because we are not creating roles that allow them to succeed in balancing their life. And I think that that's really, really important. I also think we are not inviting people to coach. I actually just wrote a post about this that said female college athletes, like, overwhelmingly said if somebody asked them to coach, they would do it. They don't see themselves represented in coaches because most coaches that they've ever been exposed to are male. And that has drastically changed since the early 1970s. There used to be more female coaches coaching, particularly women's sports at a collegiate level. Now they're the minority. And so once again, representation does matter. Women seeing other women doing things helps to show them how to do it. We have to mentor, we have to sponsor women so that they can thrive in these kind of environments. We've got to do things like job sharing and flexible scheduling. We should have childcare solutions, parental leave. We cannot leave the female talent on the table for coaching by not creating any of these systems to allow for women to be the success that we all know they can be. It's really about their talent, their retention, building cultures. Anytime in any industry, any situation where we create a system that allows women to rise and to thrive, everybody wins. And particularly for coaches, if we have more women coaches, we're going to have more girls playing the sports. And that's going to make a difference for those girls over their lifetime.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned mentorship, sponsoring, sharing jobs, because sharing jobs with women and just that encouragement, I think, is so important. Even if you don't get to see it, but if you have someone in your ear kind of telling you, hey, you can do this, you should be doing this, you'll be a great coach. I think that actually goes a long way. I never thought that I would be a coach, even though I've been tennis obsessed ever since I grew up with the tennis racket. It was never a thought in my mind that could be a career choice for me. I actually went into research and I was a scientist for 4 years before I realized, hey, I really miss tennis. I wonder if I can coach a little bit on the side. And what started as a side hustle and as a curiosity turned into my full career. I ended up pursuing that path. And what really pushed me to do it was my sister kind of taking that pressure off and saying, if that's what you really want to do in your life, you should definitely go for it. Why don't you do that? And I thought to myself, yeah, why don't I do that? Why don't I pursue that? It just never occurred to me. And it's funny because my sister, she's a surgeon. I always say she's the smart one of the family. She's a surgeon. She speaks 3 languages and plays the violin. So I think all the brain cells went to her. But anyway, she says it's the other way because I get to have fun in my job. But, she went through that whole process of becoming a doctor, and it's a really tough job. And she just always encouraged me to just do something that you're passionate about, because even as a surgeon, you better love it to
Yeah.
be in it, you know? But yeah, I do think that that goes a long way. Did you always have that confidence in you that you will be a CEO one day? Were you a confident little kid, or how did you develop that as you grew?
Um, Boy, that's a really great question. I would say that I have always been somebody who's very values driven. And what I think I found early on is that being in charge meant I got to stick to my values because nobody told me to do something a different way. One of my earliest examples of leadership was in my first job. I was a lifeguard, and it was at the summer pool that I grew up at. So I had known all of these people my whole life. And, you're 15 and you go and you learn how to be a lifeguard. And one of the things they drill into you is that alcohol and swimming don't mix. But every year, all of the quote unquote grown-ups at the pool had a party where they closed the pool and they brought in alcohol and had like a big feast. And I said, that doesn't align with my values. I'm not going to work that event. And they were like, fine, don't work it. But then I explained to every other lifeguard why it didn't align with my values and convinced each and every one of them that it shouldn't align with theirs either. And we all boycotted and they couldn't get anybody to work the event. So I found out pretty early on that when I felt really passionately about something, I didn't want somebody else to tell me how I was going to do it. But that doesn't mean I didn't have total imposter syndrome stepping into a leadership role and going, I've never done this before. How do I do it? And I credit amazing people who helped me be successful very early on in my tenure with USTA Mid-Atlantic, who said, you've got this and it's okay. And I made mistakes. And every time I made a mistake, everybody said, it's okay. You're never going to make that mistake again.
Yeah.
So, we all kind of have to overcome a little bit of imposter syndrome every once in a while.
Oh, for sure. How old were you when you had that job at the pool?
15.
15. So you've always been a boss.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just love that story. I think that really illustrates you and how much you value your values.
They're very important to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really most of my values are people oriented. I care about creating a world where everybody is treated with the respect and dignity they deserve. And it's frankly why I talk so much about my experience being a woman in sports, being a woman in leadership, because I can see every day that it's not the same as what my male colleagues go through. And I want to build a legacy that's lasting for future generations of women leaders.
Do you find it exhausting? Because I feel like a lot of the time I'm very outspoken. I will say it how it is. That's just my personality. And if I think something's not right, I'm going to say it. And I do find it exhausting to always be the person to do it, to make the comment, to say, hey, we need more women here, because I don't want to be viewed as like that girl, like, she's just like a complainer. But it does matter to me, and it matters to other women that we're represented. So I don't know, like, do you get exhausted by it?
Great question. It's not the speaking up so much that's exhausting as the need to speak up. When you're the only one raising your hand, the only one pushing back, the only one representing a different perspective, it does carry weight. And using your voice and using it over and over again to be heard and understood and sometimes taken seriously. I absolutely calculate the tone, the timing, the potential backlash That
Yeah.
part is probably more exhausting than the actually speaking out, because to me, outspokenness isn't being loud, it's being strategic. And being strategic takes a constant energy. But
Yeah.
like I said before, I know what my values are. And so I don't speak up because of my ego. I speak up because of impact. I do it when it's hard because I care and I'm doing it for a reason, and my silence serves no one.
Yeah.
Sometimes my outspokenness doesn't serve myself, and I'm okay with that because I'm not doing it for me.
Oh, that's the clip right there. I love what you just said because I think a lot of women are silenced. They're afraid to speak up. And I find myself always being the one to do it. And sometimes I even regret it because I'm like, well, I guess people don't care that much. Because if they did, they would say something. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal than it actually is. And then I'm like, but it matters to me. It's like
Mm-hmm.
important to me to see this change, you know? So yeah,
I would
that's
tell you, Jen, that outspokenness isn't your personality trait. So it is a choice you're making every day to stand for something. It's going to
yeah,
cost you energy, and staying quiet is going to cost you your integrity. And every day we make a choice with what we can and cannot live with. And I'd rather use my energy than lose my integrity.
yeah. Agreed. And in today's world is it's I think even harder, right? We're not going to get political just because it's such a tumultuous time in our country and polarized, and I want to be somewhere in the middle because I really do believe that that's where progress is made, is where opposing views listen to each other in a way that is respectful and most people's needs are met, right? So
Mhm.
I want to be pretty neutral with this, but I do want to get into it. So a lot of the DEI programs are getting eliminated or defunded. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. We don't need to get into that, but can you speak a little bit on how we can still promote those values of diversity and inclusion, like for example seeing women in tennis and encouraging women to play tennis, to be coaches, to do all these things, to have leadership roles, when it's viewed almost in like a negative way now?
Yeah. So, certainly in today's political environment where diversity, equity, and inclusion are words that might carry different meaning or more weight than what's in the dictionary, I think all conversations are a little more highly charged. And so it feels a little riskier. It can be polarizing, and there might be an expectation that people stay neutral. I think sort of the more divided the world feels, there's even more pressure to stay silent. And that to me then goes back to my values and why I can't. I don't want to be polarizing, but I also think that there are sort of basic equity and inclusion principles that we can all agree with. And if we continue to lead with our values, we will have a real purpose for everything that we're saying. So, modeling integrity, modeling courage, modeling clarity, sort of getting crystal clear on who we are, what we stand for, is part of leadership. And I think sometimes in this world, we tell women to sit down and tone it down, and using our voice and using it appropriately and associating it with our values, it is an act of leadership. And I do want a better world for both my son and my daughter.
Yes.
And I think that knowing what I stand for and really standing for people and the inclusion of people, particularly in my role in sport. making a place for everyone to play, creating access. We know that sport is life-changing. We know that tennis particularly gives life skills and is something that people can do for a lifetime. And so if I focus on those values, I'm going to be able to pave the way for women coaches, for girls to play, for the LGBT community to feel included when they go play tennis. All of those things are important to me and they're part of my values. So even though it's a polarizing world, I think if we stay true to our personal values and if we're crystal clear on our organizational values, we can be lawful, which is important. We don't want to break the law, but we can also do what I think is right.
Has the new changes impacted the USTA, the foundation, or the Girls Rule the Court, or anything like that?
At this point, we have not had any direct impacts on us as an organization. We do not get any funding from the federal government. So a lot of the new laws are aimed at that. But, we are at kind of the epicenter of the political environment. Our section does include Washington, D.C. And so we're very mindful of being respectful of all people's opinions. Truly being inclusive is about bringing everybody into the tent. And in our case, the tent is a tennis court, and we want everybody to feel welcome and included there, regardless of your political persuasion or your race or your identity. Everybody is welcome to benefit from tennis. And that's really what we're focused on.
Well said. Do you get these questions a lot at this time?
A little, yes, but I have found that tennis as a sport is, maybe at least in my region, pretty evolved, pretty welcoming, pretty open to opportunity. And I think most people that I interact with just want to play. They want to play, they want to get better, they want to have fun, they want to build community, they want to be healthy. That's really what people care about, I think, right now, even more than some of the other things. Tennis is an amazing outlet right now for people who are struggling or feeling overwhelmed or anxious as a result of social or political pressures that are happening environmentally. And so it's important to me that we create those outlets and those experiences where people help their mental health and their physical health and their well-being by being surrounded by people who lift them up and make them better people out on the tennis court and in life.
Absolutely. And I mean, sports like healthcare is something that should be available to everyone. And so it's a little bit different, I guess, in that sense. What are your thoughts on these like diversity hires, right? That we keep hearing about. And I see both sides of it because I think, for example, a CEO position or any type of leadership position, of course, like it should be based on your qualifications. But at the same time, we also value diversity in thought, right? Mm-hmm. We can't have an organization that only represents one type of person, right? So where do we find the middle? I guess this is a long-winded question, but where do we find the middle?
So I think when people say diversity hire, they're implying that someone was hired because of who they are and not what they bring to the table. And to me, that's a false and harmful narrative. The issue isn't diversity hires, it's really the bias in traditional hiring that can often exclude qualified candidates who bring a different lived experience. We talk about bias a lot in leadership because we in this society have decided that bias is a negative connotation, but I was very fortunate to get to study all about bias in graduate school. And bias is really neutral. It's how you apply your bias that isn't. And bias exists in everyone. So even though I'm a woman who advocates for women, I might have a bias, right? When I do the little exercise that says picture the airline pilot, the first thing that comes to my head is a older white male. That's a bias.
Yeah.
Those biases impact hiring. And so if we have an equity focused lens, we sort of expand that definition of talent and we include people who might have been historically overlooked. It doesn't really lower the bar. It sort of says that old bar was really too narrow. And all of the data says that diverse teams perform better. That is absolute data. So they have higher innovation, better decision making, stronger performance. You miss out if everybody's exactly the same. So to me, I think we need to not worry about diversity hires and instead work on systems that create opportunity for everyone, and then make sure that we focus on belonging and inclusion. Make sure that we have cultures that create opportunity for everybody once they come in, right? If you hire for diversity, but then you lead for sameness, that's it. You've missed the point. You're not doing what needs to be done to really create a next generation workforce.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Because just like you said, you could search for that different person, but then if your culture, your workplace is not well suited for that person, they're not going to make it or they're going to leave because they're not comfortable. They don't enjoy that work environment.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. So I always ask this question: what has been the grand slam moment and the double bagel moment of your career so far? So basically, the highlight has been that brought you the most joy, and the double bagel may be something that, I don't know, a time that you messed up or something didn't go according to plan.
I don't think I've reached my highlight yet. And maybe that's just because I think I'm constantly striving for a new highlight. Creating and launching Girls Rule the Court, making something that's our own. In the USTA ecosystem, most programming is done at a national level and then sort of given to the regional offices and pushed out. And creating something that's so meaningful to me and to my all women leadership team and making an impact on girls and women, right? It's not just girls. We have more women coaches because of Girls Rule the Court as well. To me, that's a highlight, but the highlight reel is going to get longer and bigger. I don't know that I can pick one thing that is like my biggest crash and burn because I have always had the philosophy of fail faster. Make your mistake, dust yourself off, get back up and do it again, because the only way you're going to learn is by failure over and over and over again. So frankly, Girls Rule the Court could be my highlight and my double bagel because it's not where I want it to be. We don't have as many girls. We don't have as many coaches. We don't have as many locations. I'm striving for that every single day. Do I say the wrong thing sometimes? Absolutely. Do I accidentally email people and go, oh, shoot, that person wasn't supposed to be on that email? Absolutely. I make dumb mistakes. What I try to do, which I think is so important for women, is to learn from every mistake and move on. We are so hard on ourselves. And so if you ask me about a failure, I'm not great at coming up with one because in my mind, that was a learning opportunity and I've already moved on.
Well said. And I doubt you ever say the wrong thing. I really doubt that. I don't know. Maybe you've just gotten to a point in your life where you just seem to say the right thing. I mean, every answer has been so spot on. Can you tell us just some closing remarks on Girls Rule the Court? Just a little more detail, I guess, on where you guys are located and how can we support it? How can people find out about it? If there's any women coaches out there listening that want to be a part of it.
Absolutely. So first of all, go to our website, girlsrulethecourt.com. We are currently operating throughout the Mid-Atlantic. We're in Loudoun County, Baltimore, Charlottesville, Louisa County, Howard County, and expanding rapidly. We're also in New York, and we just launched in Austin, Texas. We are constantly looking for female coaches, and we train female coaches. And when I say female coaches, most of my female coaches are league players who maybe have never coached before, but love the game and love young women. And they have been awesome. If you want to bring it to your community, go to that website and get in touch with us. We will make it happen. We made it happen in Austin. We had a great partner. And I want this to be in every school and every park agency and every neighborhood in America, because I want every girl picking up a racket and seeing how their life can change through playing the sport.
Fantastic. And are you partnering with schools, you said?
We are. Yep. So we partner with schools. We partner with parks and recreation departments. We partner with homeowners associations. We do not need a court to run the program. We run it in gyms, cafeterias, blacktops, wherever we can find space.
Okay. And someone wants to start a program. What kind of support can they expect? Is it, you said training?
We have a full,
things like that?
we have a full curriculum, week by week, workbook for each of the students, and workbook for all of the coaches, plus equipment, plus uniforms, plus budgets, plus research data and insights that they collect. We also help people fundraise locally. We are the engine behind making sure that it works for you. So if it's something you're interested in, we're going to make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And like I said, I mean, you had every perfect answer. So.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me. And I just want everybody to get out there and play tennis.
Same. We're on the same boat. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys for listening to Vida Tennis. And I also forgot to mention the World Tennis Conference, guys. I got to be a presenter there this year, and it was my first time being a presenter. I was part of a panel with Adam Bleacher, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is an incredible coach and author of the book Winning Words, and Dan Kiernan, who also is a fellow podcaster. He has a great podcast called Control the Controllables, and he runs the Soto Academy in Spain. Both great guys I hope to collaborate more with in the future. So if you have access to the World Tennis Conference videos online, make sure to watch mine. Let me know how I did. As always, please visit VidaTennisPodcast.com for everything Vida Tennis and ways to contact me. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.